Thank you for joining us. This is Health Your Own Way podcast, and I am your host, Mo Atkins. Welcome to another episode. Today, we'll be talking about how unhealed betrayal impacts your health, work, and relationship. I really want to have this conversation because I feel a lot of us are walking trauma. And my guest speaker, Dr. Debi Silber, is the founder of PBT, Post-Betrayal Transformation. She's going to have to explain that to us later. Institute, and a holistic psychologist, a health and mindset and personal development expert. So thank you for being part of this conversation. Debi, anything you want to add before we continue today?
When we get to talking, you'll hear the rest. So I think we're good.
Perfect. I think for me, when we talk about unhealed betrayal, I think what does betrayal mean? Like, I guess betrayal could be in so many different meanings for other people, but in high level, just dumb it down for most of us. What does betrayal mean to us?
I define it as the breaking of a spoken or unspoken rule, and every relationship has them. And the way it works is the more we trust and the more we depend on the person, the deeper the betrayal. So, for example, a child who's totally dependent on their parent, and the parent does something awful, that's going to have a different impact than, let's say, your best friend sharing your secret, your coworker taking credit for your idea. Still a betrayal, different level of cleanup left in the wake. But I mean, it has so many faces. It could be the partner who had an affair, the business partner who stole the company funds, the best friend who shared the secret, the siblings who said, we'll be there for mom and dad one day. And then, where are they? We could feel our bodies have betrayed us. We've done everything we could to be healthy, and then we get a disease. Or we could have self-betrayal. We know that person or that thing is not in our best interest, and we keep going back for more.
I like when you say that, because when I first thought of betrayal, I was thinking more on the emotional side, like relationship or like cheating or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you mention betrayal in respects to, a family member or, a daughter to a mother, or even internal betrayal, that's a unique, not a unique concept, but that's a unique concept for me that I haven't understood. So then let's step back and say, when you're not unhealed with a betrayal that you've done to yourself, like, how does one acknowledge that and start opening up your eyes to be healed or to take the steps to heal?
Yeah. Well, you first have to know what you're dealing with, because so often, we have these unhealed betrayals, and they could be from decades ago. We've all heard time heals all wounds. I have the proof that when it comes to betrayal, that's not true. So an unhealed betrayal will show up in our health, in our work, in our relationships. And I mean, I'm happy to get into, my discoveries, and then you'll see. Yeah, sure. So, you don't study something like betrayal unless you have to. So it's my 30th year in business, and I was in health and then mindset and then personal development. And then I had a really painful betrayal from my family. Thought I did everything I needed to do to heal from that. Happened a few years later. This time it was my husband. So that was the deal breaker. Got him out of the house and looked at the two experiences thinking, okay, what's similar to these two? Of course, me, what else? And I realized, I never really took my needs seriously, and boundaries were always getting crossed. And, one of those believers, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So here it was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a thriving business, and I enrolled in a Ph.D. program. And it was in transpersonal psychology, psychology of transformation and human potential. And while I was there, I did a study. I studied betrayal. What holds us back? What helps us heal? And what happens to us physically, mentally, and emotionally when the people closest to us lie, cheat, and deceive? And that study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my health, my family, my work, my life. And happy to share the discoveries if that would serve.
It will for me, because I'm trying to learn. I think
sure.
I say that because I think a lot of people I like when you said that, time heals, time is supposed to heal all wounds. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you develop certain coping skills that are negative, that you don't realize that it's based on a betrayal before. So some of the discoveries that you said that you've done research on, please share, because I can learn a lot. I'm not saying I don't have betrayals, or I do. I just want to learn. Okay.
Yeah, sure. And what you said, really is part of the 3rd discovery, which I'll share, where that unhealed betrayal shows up and keeps us stuck, and we just keep reliving it over and over and over again. And I'll get to that one. So the first one was, I had a feeling betrayal was a very different type of trauma than death of a loved one, disease, stuff like that. Because I had been through those, and I was like, betrayal feels different for me. But I didn't want to assume it was the same for everybody else. So I asked all my study participants, if you've been through other traumas besides betrayal, excuse me, is it different for you? Unanimously, they said it's so different. And here's why. Because it feels so intentional, we take it so personally.
Hmm.
So the self gets shattered. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. Like, for example, you lose someone you love, you grieve, you're sad, you mourn the loss. You don't lose your ability to trust. You see what I mean? So because of the intentionality, because of the just destruction to the self, I coined a new term, post-betrayal transformation. It's the complete and total rebuild of your life, which you need to do with all traumas. You don't need to, but
You
that's
should.
your advantage. You should. Plus yourself after an experience with betrayal. So that betrayal is a different type of trauma was the first discovery. The second one was there's actually a collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional. So common to betrayal, it's now known as post-betrayal syndrome. And we've had about 80,000 people take our post-betrayal syndrome quiz on our site to see to what extent they're struggling. And, when I said time doesn't heal all wounds, here's how I have the proof. There's a question on the quiz that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? And people write things like, my betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm unwilling to trust. My betrayal happened 40 years ago. I can still feel the hate. My betrayal happened 15 years ago. It feels like it happened yesterday. So we know we cannot count on time or a new relationship to heal betrayal. And every few months, I pull the stats from the quiz to see where people land. You want me to share some?
Sure, please.
Yeah. Okay.
Open to
So now
this.
imagine this is men, women, just about every age group, almost every country is represented. 78%. This is out of 80,000 people constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. 80% are hypervigilant. That's exhausting. 94% deal with painful triggers. These are the most common physical symptoms. 71% have low energy, 68% have sleep issues, 63% have extreme fatigue. You could sleep all night, you wake up, you're exhausted, your adrenals have tanked. 47% have weight changes. So in the beginning, maybe you can't hold food down. Later on, you're using food for comfort. 45% have digestive issues, and that could be anything from Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, constipation, diarrhea, you name it. The most common mental symptoms, 78% are overwhelmed, 70% are walking around in a state of disbelief, 68% are unable to focus, 64% are in shock, 62% can't concentrate. So imagine you can't concentrate, you have a gut issue, you're exhausted, you still have to work, you still have to raise your kids. That's not even the emotional ones. Emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness. 83% are very angry, real common to bounce back and forth between those two. 82% feel hurt, 80% have anxiety, 79% are stressed, just a few more. This is why I wrote my book, Trust Again. 84% have an inability to trust. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how. That's crazy, right?
Sometimes I tell some of my guest speakers that you guys are my therapy. When I see you guys are my therapy, like I say this on a personal level that I didn't realize some of the betrayal that you may have experienced when you're younger or in a relationship or something. You don't realize that is maybe what the underlying issues you have with certain things in your future. Or how are you feeling? When you mentioned like the whole lack of trust, lack of sleep, or just constantly trying to, it just comes back into your mind consistently. And you're just like, why can I not get rid of this you know? Yeah.
Because it's
Okay.
not healed.
It's a little shocking. And I think the next question is because you mentioned you had a book. Does your
Mhm.
book relate, or is there a way to address or start healing from that? Even if there's possibility to heal, how do you start?
Oh, it is. It's not only possible, it's predictable. And that's the third discovery. But I want to just to finish up about the
Sure.
post-betrayal syndrome stuff. This is the worst part about it. First of all, you didn't hear me read one stat, 20%, 30%. These numbers are high.
Yeah.
And then the worst thing is, now imagine this here, like, let's say it was the parent who did something awful. Let's say it was the girlfriend, boyfriend in high school, whatever it was. This person may not know, care, or even remember. And here we are decades later with gut issues, with hypervigilance, being exhausted. Do you see? That's the crime. And you're right. We keep repeating this. We keep walking around with these symptoms because time will not heal it. A new relationship will not heal it. But the third discovery is where you can see exactly how this shows up. You want me to share the third one?
Sure.
Okay, for me, this was the most exciting out of all three. And what we learned was while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and so many people do, if we're going to fully heal, and by fully heal, I mean symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome, like I just shared, to that completely rebuilt, healed space of post-betrayal transformation, we're going to move through 5 now proven predictable stages. Here's what's even more exciting about that is we know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every one of those stages, and we know what it takes to move from one stage to the next. Healing is entirely predictable. Happy to share the stages if you want.
Sure. You keep
Okay.
asking. This is what I need to know. Tell me, Debbie, I need to
Yeah.
heal.
Yeah. So first of all, they're all mapped out in trust again.
Okay.
It's what our coaches are all certified in, whether they work within the PBT Institute or on their own. It's what we teach within the PBT Institute. Here's sort of like a boiled down version. So stage 1 is like a setup stage. And if you can imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. What I saw with everybody, me too, was a real heavy lean on the physical and the mental, thinking and doing, and kind of neglecting the emotional and the spiritual, feeling and being. So think about it. If a table only has 2 legs, easy for the table to topple over, right? That's us. Stage 2, shock, trauma, D-Day, discovery day, the scariest of all of the stages. And this is the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. Right here, you've gotten that news, right? You're in shock. And it lands itself on your body, mind, and heart. You've ignited the stress response. So you're headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Your mind is in a complete state of chaos and overwhelm. You cannot wrap your mind around what you just learned or experienced. Makes no sense. And your worldview has just been shattered. Your worldview is your mental model. Don't go there, trust this person. These are the rules. This is how life works. And in one earth-shattering moment or series of moments, every rule you've held to be real and true is no longer. The bottom is bottomed out on you. And a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. It's terrifying. But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You grab hold of anything you could to stay safe and stay alive. And that's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. It's the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this experience? Where do I go? Who can I trust? How do I feed my kids? Here's the trap though. Stage 3, by far, hands down, is the most common place to get stuck. And that's where what we were talking about. Here's why. Once you've figured out how to survive your experience, because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma of where you just came from, you think it's good. You're like, okay, I got this. And because you don't know there's anywhere else to go, because you don't know there's a stage 4 or stage 5, transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. But because you don't know there's anywhere else to go, you plant roots here. You're not supposed to. You don't know that though. And you plant roots here and 4 things happen. The first thing is you get all these small self benefits from being here. You get to be right. You get your story. You get someone to blame. Yeah, I see you smiling. You get a target for your anger. You get sympathy from everybody you tell your story to. And on some level, that feels good. So you plant deeper roots. You're not supposed to, but you don't know that. And now because you're here longer than you should be, the mind starts doing things like, well, maybe I deserved it. Maybe I'm not all that great. Maybe this, maybe that. So you plant deeper roots. Again, you're not supposed to be here, but you don't know that. Now, because you plant, this is what you're thinking. Well, this is the energy you're putting out. Like energy attracts like energy. So now you're calling situations and circumstances and even relationships towards you to confirm, yup, this is where you belong. It gets worse, but I'll get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but you don't know there's anywhere else to go, you resign yourself right here. You're like, this stinks, but I have to get through my day. I have to work. I have to raise my kids. So right here, you start using things like food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, keeping busy, reckless behavior, whatever it is, to numb, avoid, and distract yourself from this painful place. So think about it. You do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit. A year, 10 years, 20 years. And I can see someone 20 years out and say, that emotional eating you're doing, that drinking you're doing, that numbing in front of the TV, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they would look at me like I'm crazy. I'd say it happened 20 years ago. all they did was put themselves in stage 3 and stay there. Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And that's why my most recent book, From Hardened to Healed, is just for stage 3, because I was like, there are 5 stages, but everybody is staying in stage 3. You've been through the worst of it already. You owe it to yourself to move through your transformation.
Then what's stage 4 then?
Yeah. So stage 4, if you're willing, willingness is a big thing right here. If you're willing to let go of the small self benefits, grieve, mourn the loss, bunch of things you need to do, you move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. Here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo what happened, but I control what I do with it. Right there in that decision, you turn the stress response down. You're not healing just yet, but at least you stop the massive damage you've been creating in stages 2 and stage 3. Stage 4 feels like, if you've ever moved to a new house, office, condo, apartment, whatever, your stuff's not all there. It's not quite cozy yet, but it's going to be okay. It's that kind of feeling. But think about this. If you were to move, you don't take everything with you. You don't take the things that don't represent who you want to be in that new space. And what I found was, if your friends weren't there for you, you don't take them with you. Right here, you've outgrown them. And people say to me all the time, what the heck? I've had these friends 10, 20, 30 years. Is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. And if they don't rise, they don't come. Very common to outgrow certain relationships when you're moving from stage 3 to stage 4, like the misery loves company crowd, you don't take them with you right here. You've outgrown them. Anyway, when you're in stage 4, you've made it cozy. You've made it, mentally, you've made it home. You move to the 5th most beautiful stage. And this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. Your body starts to heal. Self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise. You didn't really have the bandwidth for that earlier. Now you do. Your mind is healing. You're making new rules. You're making new boundaries based on the road you just traveled and based on what you want now. And you have a new worldview based on what you see so clearly. And the 4 legs of that table, in the beginning, it was all about the physical and the mental. By this point, we're solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5 stages.
Thank you. I feel like I've gone through the stages right now with you.
Yeah.
I felt like gone through the stages. Like I appreciate this because I think a lot of people don't realize that they're in stage 3. I see it, like you can tell. I don't want to talk about people's business, but on a personal level, just for me, like sometimes you don't realize you're stuck. Sometimes you're just like, okay, and you're right. Like if you find a way to adapt or deal with that current situation that's hurting you, you think, okay, this is how it should be. You don't realize there's more to that. So I appreciate you saying that. And I know you mentioned you have a book, and if anybody was interested in learning more about what you offer, how to even just acknowledge or understand the stages more better, what's the best social media platform that they can reach out on?
Yeah. I mean, and everything is really, they should just go to the PBT, as in post betrayal transformation, thepbtinstitute.com.
Perfect. We'll have it here. And I think for me, once they go through that institute, or they go through that process, what are some of the benefits you've seen them achieve that you can share it so that people watch and say, okay, you know what? Let's say if I do this, like, is it really going to happen? Like, is it going to help me?
Yeah. What they do, all we do within the PBT Institute is people come in at stage 2 and stage 3, and we just predictably move them through stage 4, stage 5, and beyond. I mean, that's it. We know, remember, I did the research, so we know what it takes. So we have our coaches, our certified coaches teaching daily classes. We have master classes. We have self-paced programs that literally move them through, and everything is organized under stages. So if you're in stage 2, you need to do stage 2 stuff to get to stage 3. Stage 3, you need to do stage 3 stuff to get to stage 4 and beyond. And that's all it is. It's finding out what stage they come in at, and we have a very simple way of knowing that. And then from there, just moving them through, and also with the right type of support, because the wrong type of support does way more harm than good. It'll keep you stuck. Like we've a lot of people coming in with therapy trauma. If a therapist isn't highly skilled in betrayal, does way more harm than good. Or let's say that therapist is just hearing that person and letting them speak. If anything is going to glue you to stage 3, it's just going over your story endlessly without coming out of it with a way to move to stage 4. So yeah, it's just within the Institute. It's like just what's the quickest, shortest, most direct path to get you to the next stage?
Then I guess the other question I want to ask is anybody who's watching or listening that want to actually be educated
Mhm,
in that form of mythology or whatever you want to put it, I apologize. How do
mhm.
they learn, or do they reach out to you guys, say, okay, I want you guys to teach me so I can offer the service to my clients as well?
Oh yeah, we have our certificate. There's just a navigation tab to certification, and think about it. Like, 45% of everyone betrayed has a gut issue. You could go to the most well-meaning, amazing gut expert, but if they're not highly skilled in betrayal, they're only taking you to a certain level.
Fair enough.
So we want to get the certification in everybody's hands, a coach, a healer, a doctor, a therapist, so they have deeper transformations with their clients or patients. And some work within the institute, and some just want the information to have those graded transformations with their clients or patients.
Appreciating it. I think just for everybody, those people that are certified, they're not therapists. I just want to make sure that
Well,
it's
some
not.
are.
Oh, okay. You know what? Who might just ask? Thank you for correcting me,
Those are our
doctor.
certified practitioners, yeah.
Okay.
But it's a very different type of therapy. It's
Okay.
it's they're very highly skilled in moving someone through the
Okay.
stages. That's the whole idea, because there's no sense of just unpacking all your stuff without doing something forward moving with it.
Then my question then is for you to accept people to take the certification, is there some kind of requirements ahead of time? I just want to make sure. So at least people understand that you don't
Oh
just
yeah,
take a
sure.
John Doe from the street and say, okay, you're certified. That's it.
Yeah, oh no, no, no. So we have two tracks. To be a certified PBT post-betrayal transformation coach, you need to be a coach or a healer of some kind. To
Okay.
be a certified PBT practitioner, you need to be a doctor, therapist, counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist. And the difference is in the logo, and the difference is if they work within the PBT Institute, just how much I pay
No,
for
that's fine.
to see our members. Yeah.
I appreciate you saying that because I don't want someone listening to us or watching us saying, okay, you know what? I can just call in and just get hired. Like
Oh,
I'm
no,
not a
no.
therapist. Yeah. So it just shows more credibility in what you're offering and
Yeah.
what you're saying. So I appreciate you saying that. And I want to say, I think after this conversation, I'm going to go sit down, Debbie, go through the stages in my mental state. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of it does apply. I think at one point I was in stage 3. I understand stage 4, and I think for a lot of people watching, stage 4 is not easy. Like I can see what you're saying. Like you have to you have to look at yourself and realize what you are doing wrong, and then be willing to get out of your comfort zone. And being stage 3 is a comfort zone because
Mhm.
it validates how you feel because
Mhm.
you're telling yourself a story, is what you literally said to me at the beginning. So I appreciate you saying that. Before I let you go, anything else you want to add or state?
Yeah, I've been there, and I know how painful it is. And you've been through the worst of it already. I didn't do anything anybody else couldn't do, but there's a roadmap for it now. So you owe it to yourself to move past that pain. Just because someone did something to you, it's not about you. Move through the stages. If I tell you how many new businesses, new levels of health, new lives are really birthed in that stage 5, like the PBT Institute, that was a stage 5 thing. And it's when that you clear that trauma and you're in that healing place, that's when you're open to those types of things. So that's what we see in stage 4 and stage 5. So get out of your own way, move through the stages, and find what you're really here for.
I appreciate saying that. Before I let you go, I think for me, I've had guests that talk about great counselor, great sort of great coaches, and for me, I feel like it's what you offer is actually a little bit more not important. They're both equally important, but I think betrayal is more at the present. That person that you're going through, their seat technically can be it could be alive or not, but it just reminds me of those conversations of how with grief coaches and why they felt that was important. Why betrayal, having a coach in betrayal is important as well to help you address those issues.
Yeah.
I just wanted to tell me if I'm wrong. Like I'm
No,
just
no,
here
no,
for.
absolutely. And here's the thing too. We, within the Institute, we really work on that person, the person who's been betrayed, to get to their highest and best self. And, sometimes, listen, you heal yourself and move on. And that's what I do with my family. And sometimes if the situation lends itself, if you're willing, if you want to, you rebuild something entirely new from the ground up new with the person who hurt you. That's what I did with my husband. So not long ago, as two totally different people, we married each other again. New rings, new vows, new dress, and our 4 kids as our bridal party. So we never know what's going to happen when that person is at their highest and best, that's when they make their best decisions.
I agree. I said that. Okay. I appreciate this conversation. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
We're glad to have you join us. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, share with anyone that needs to be empowered and inspired, and don't forget to join us next week for the next episode of Health Your Way podcast. Have a good day, you guys.